Have you ever noticed how some people only understand the value of your love when they stop receiving it the same way? Not when you are crying, not when you are explaining, not when you are asking for one honest conversation, not when you are trying to fix what they keep avoiding, but when you stop reaching first, when you stop being the one who always starts the conversation, softens the silence, repairs the mood, asks what is wrong, apologizes just to keep peace, and tries to pull love out of someone who has become comfortable giving less. That is when something changes. For a long time, he may have believed your love would always be there, not because he never cared at all, but because you kept showing him that no matter how distant he became, you would still come closer. No matter how cold he acted, you would still try to understand him. No matter how little effort he gave, you would still carry the emotional weight of the relationship. You became the one who reached first. First to talk, first to check on him, first to explain, first to forgive, first to repair, first to break the silence, first to make sure the connection did not completely disappear. And slowly, without meaning to, you taught him that your love had no real absence. It was always available, always waiting, always trying, always hoping, always willing to make one more effort. But love that is always available to someone who is not valuing it can become invisible. That is the painful part. Sometimes your love does not disappear because it is small. It disappears in his eyes because it has been too constant. He gets used to it. He starts assuming it will survive anything. He starts believing you will always be the one to care enough for both of you. So he stops feeling the weight of your effort. He stops noticing how many times you swallowed your pain just to avoid another argument. He stops noticing how much strength it took to stay soft when you were hurting. He stops noticing that the woman reaching for him was not weak. She was tired, scared, loving, and still trying. But even the woman who loves deeply eventually reaches a point where something inside her grows quiet, not because she stopped caring, not because the love vanished overnight, not because she became cold, but because she realized that reaching first every time was slowly teaching him not to reach at all. And when she stops, he finally feels the space her effort used to cover. At first, he may not understand it. He may think you are upset. He may think you are being emotional. He may think this is just another temporary silence, and that eventually you will return to the same pattern. He waits for the message. He waits for the question. He waits for you to explain your feelings again. He waits for you to soften first. He waits for you to make the connection easy again. But this time, something is different. You are not running after the silence. You are not rushing to fix the distance. You are not giving him 100 words just to receive 3. You are not trying to prove that your heart is still there. And that is when the relationship starts to reveal the truth. Because when you stop reaching first, he has to face the gap that your effort was hiding. He has to feel what happens when your love is no longer doing all the moving. He has to notice whether he actually wants the connection or only enjoyed being pursued. He has to decide whether he misses you or only misses the comfort of knowing you are always available. This is why stopping the chase is not a game. It is not punishment. It is not manipulation. It is not a strategy to make him panic. It is a return to truth. For too long, you may have confused love with overfunctioning. You may have believed that if you cared more, tried harder, explained better, stayed calmer, forgave faster, and proved your loyalty long enough, he would finally see your heart. But sometimes the more you reach, the less he has to, and that creates a painful imbalance. You become the emotional engine of the relationship, while he becomes the passenger. You become the one monitoring the distance, while he becomes the one creating it. You become the one trying to restore closeness, while he becomes comfortable avoiding what needs repair. And the more you feel him pulling away, the more afraid you become. So you reach again, you send the message, you ask if everything is okay, you try to talk about the distance, you explain how alone you feel, you remind him that you love him, you try to bring back the warmth. But if he is emotionally unavailable, overwhelmed, avoidant, prideful, or simply used to you doing the work, your reaching may not wake him up. It may only reassure him that he still has access to you without needing to change. That is why your absence can speak louder than your effort. When you stop reaching first, you are not saying, "I do not love you." You are saying, "I cannot keep being the only person reaching." You are saying, "My love is real, but it is not endless fuel for a one-sided connection." You are saying, "I will no longer use my fear of losing you as a reason to keep losing myself." And that kind of quiet shift can be more powerful than another emotional conversation, because words can be ignored, tears can be minimized, explanations can be avoided. But absence creates a space that cannot be argued with. He may not admit it immediately, but he feels it. He feels the lack of your usual effort. He feels the silence where your care used to rush in. He feels the distance he once thought you would always close. He feels that the woman who once reached automatically is now choosing herself carefully. And for the first time, he has to ask himself questions he may have avoided before. Where did her energy go? Why is she not trying the way she used to? Did I take her for granted? Did I become too comfortable with her love? Is she still here in the same way? Those questions matter, because sometimes a man does not understand the cost of your love until he has to live without the convenience of it. He may have known you loved him, but he may not have understood what that love required from you. The patience, the emotional control, the forgiveness, the waiting, the hope, the way you kept choosing connection even when you felt unseen. But when you stop reaching first, the meaning of your love becomes clearer, not just to him, but to you, because you begin to see how much of your peace was being spent trying to keep him emotionally close. You begin to notice how often you abandoned yourself to avoid losing him. You begin to notice how much anxiety was hiding underneath your effort. You begin to notice how painful it is to keep asking for the kind of love that should not need to be begged for. And maybe that is the hardest truth. You were not only reaching because you loved him. You were reaching because silence scared you. You were reaching because distance made you panic. You were reaching because part of you believed that if you stopped trying, the relationship would collapse. You were reaching because you did not want to face the possibility that you were the only one holding it together. That realization hurts, but it also sets you free, because once you see the pattern, you can stop confusing anxiety with devotion and fear with love. This does not mean you become cruel. A woman can stop reaching first and still have a gentle heart. She can still love him. She can still pray for the marriage. She can still hope for healing. She can still want connection to return. But she no longer forces herself into the role of the pursuer. She no longer believes it is her job to drag emotional presence out of a man who has become passive with her heart. She no longer tries to make him feel the relationship by constantly reminding him it exists, because real love requires movement from both people. If only one person reaches, only one person is carrying the bridge, and eventually the one carrying it will become exhausted. So when you stop reaching first, you give him the opportunity to show you who he is without your constant emotional help. Will he notice? Will he step forward? Will he ask what changed? Will he make an effort? Will he take responsibility? Will he try to understand, not just react? Or will he simply let the silence grow? If you're tired of chasing his attention and reacting from fear, I created the Marriage Restoration Playbook to help you rebuild emotional safety, restore connection, and stop losing yourself in the process. You can find it through the link in the description and pinned comment. That answer is important because some women fear that if they stop initiating, there may be nothing left, no message, no repair, no effort, no proof that he wants the connection too. They would rather keep the relationship alive through their effort than discover it may not be alive without it. But truth, even when it hurts, is better than living inside an illusion that drains you. If the connection only exists because you keep chasing it, then stopping reveals what you need to know. Not to destroy you, not to make you bitter, not to prove that love was fake, but to show you where reality begins. Because you cannot restore a relationship by pretending two people are trying when only one person is reaching. You cannot rebuild trust with someone who enjoys your loyalty but avoids responsibility. You cannot create emotional safety with someone who only becomes present when he fears losing access to you. You cannot heal a marriage by making your own needs disappear. The day you stop reaching first is the day you stop protecting him from the consequences of his emotional absence. For a long time, he may have been able to pull away without feeling what that really meant, because you kept softening the impact. He withdrew, and you reached. He got quiet, and you talked. He avoided repair, and you carried the hope for both of you. But when you stop doing that, he begins to feel the atmosphere he helped create. Not because you are punishing him, because you are no longer covering it up. That is the difference between silence from strength and silence from bitterness. Bitterness says, "I want you to suffer." Strength says, "I will not keep rescuing you from the distance you choose." Bitterness wants revenge. Strength wants truth. Bitterness is focused on his reaction. Strength is focused on your peace. And when your silence comes from strength, it does not make you smaller, it makes you steadier. You stop reacting to every shift in his tone. You stop interpreting every delay as rejection. You stop chasing reassurance every time fear appears. You stop making his mood the ruler of your day. You begin to return to yourself, and that return is powerful. Because a woman who returns to herself is different from a woman who is waiting to be chosen. She is calmer, clearer, less desperate, less available for confusion, less willing to turn crumbs into proof of love, less willing to accept temporary warmth as real change, and that difference can be felt. He may feel it in your voice, your timing, and the way you no longer rush to explain. At first, he may resist it. If he is used to your chasing, your calm may feel strange to him. If he is used to your anxiety, your steadiness may confuse him. If he is used to your constant effort, your pause may feel like loss. But that is the point. He needs to feel the difference between your love and your pursuit. Because your love may still exist, but your pursuit is what is ending. And if he truly wants you, he will eventually understand that your love cannot be taken for granted forever. He will have to meet you differently. He will have to participate. He will have to stop relying on your fear to keep the relationship alive. He will have to decide whether he wants connection enough to move toward it. But if he does not, then your stillness protects you from continuing to pour your heart into someone who only noticed you when you were chasing. That may hurt, but it is still protection. Because the goal is not to make him miss you at any cost. The goal is to stop disappearing in order to be loved. The goal is to stop making your pain louder just because he refuses to listen quietly. The goal is to stop teaching your heart that love must feel like pursuit, panic, and emotional hunger. The goal is to become steady enough to see the truth. And the truth is this: a man who values your love should not need you to collapse before he notices it. He should not need you to beg before he hears you. He should not need you to disappear before he respects you. He should not need you to break before he understands that you are hurting. But if that is where the relationship is, then your next step cannot be more chasing. Your next step has to be clarity. You can still speak honestly, you can still care deeply, you can still leave room for repair, but you must stop turning your love into emotional pursuit, because what you chase, you often push further away. And what you stop chasing finally has room to reveal whether it wants to come toward you. That is the quiet power of stopping first. It gives him room to feel, it gives you room to breathe, it gives the relationship room to show the truth. And maybe he will finally feel your absence. Maybe he will realize how much of your love he had stopped noticing. Maybe he will understand that your effort was not weakness. Maybe he will see that the woman who always reached first was the woman holding the emotional center together. Maybe he will finally step forward with humility, consistency, and care. If he does, watch the actions, not just the words, because a man can miss you and still not be ready to love you better. A man can fear losing you and still not know how to repair what he damaged. So do not look only for emotion. Look for responsibility. Look for consistency. Look for listening. Look for repair. Look for whether he can meet your heart without making you feel guilty for having one. That is how you know whether absence created awareness or just temporary fear. And if he does not step forward, you still gain something precious. You gain yourself. You gain the part of you that stopped living by his reactions. You gain the peace that comes from no longer forcing connection. You gain the truth that your worth was never dependent on how quickly he reached back. You gain the strength to love without begging. That is not losing. That is waking up. So if you are tired of always reaching first, tired of carrying the emotional weight, tired of wondering whether he would even notice if you stopped trying, listen carefully. You do not have to chase to prove your love. You do not have to beg to prove your loyalty. You do not have to keep reaching for someone who has forgotten how much it means to be reached for. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is pause, not because you stopped caring, but because love without self-respect eventually becomes self-betrayal, and you were not created to betray yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. He thought your love would always be there. Maybe because it always was. Maybe because you kept showing up even when you were tired. Maybe because you kept forgiving even when you were hurt. Maybe because you kept reaching even when he stopped meeting you halfway. But the day you stop reaching first, he finally has to feel what your love was doing all along. He has to feel the space your effort used to fill. He has to feel the silence your heart used to soften. He has to feel the distance he thought you would always cross. And whether he comes closer or not, you will finally feel something too. You will feel your own presence returning. You will feel the part of you that remembers you are allowed to be loved without chasing. You will feel the strength that comes when you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself with calm dignity. And that is where everything begins to change.